Sing my chorus one more time.
Raise your voice and let my soul, King of kings and
I believe that the Lord would say, don't listen to the taunts of the enemy. Don't listen to their false cry. They're there to throw you off track. I am the Lord. I am the Father. I hold this world together with my fingers, and nothing is going to be able to take you. So I have to rest in my power, rest in my specific love, cast out fear. Just trust me and do not listen to the taunts of the enemy. Thank you, Lord, you are our abundance. Help us to know you as our Father, and when everything else falls, you stand. Praise you for Jesus. It's not you with us.
oh God, you are my help, and I will praise you. Oh God, you are my help, and I will praise you. I will sing you morning. I will learn to walk in your way, and step by step you lead me. I will follow you all of my days. I will follow you all of my days. And step by step, you lead me. Now you all of my days. Oh God, you are my God, and I will never praise you. Oh God, you are my God, I will never praise you. follow you all of my days. I'll follow you all of my days. I will follow you all of my days. Step by step, you lead me. How are you all of my days? Step by step, you lead me. I will follow you all my days.
The Lord's faith, your leader, and your shepherd, through the life. Thank you, Father, trust in your voice. We'll always be soft and tender that in Jesus' name. All God's church said.
Just want to share where it says, step by step, you lead me and I'll follow you all my days. One things the Lord has been speaking to me has been about hearing God's voice, about following God's there's what the Lord needs in my heart is that there's an attack on the truth that God speaks. Attack will speak to us, and that He's step by step He leads me. The just shall live by faith. And one of the things that, as believers, that distinguishes us from just being in the world and not knowing God is that the truth that we heard God's voice when we were born again, and we continue to hear God's voice. That God does lead us step by step, as He did the Israelites, while they were in the wilderness with a cloud of fire. But throughout the Word of God, He's speaking. We know we're convinced of this thing that God is speaking. In Isaiah, there's a scripture where it says, "You hear a word in your ear saying this," and as it is a war to hold on to that truth. That no, God is speaking. Because very often in the past, maybe you heard God's voice, and it was 3 years ago, and at that time you knew, and over time stuff has happened, and we kind of lost faith of like, oh yeah, God does speak, God that is speaking, God. So with that song, it's like God does lead us step by step. He leads us. It says what's the scripture about that the steps of righteous are ordered by the Lord. The Lord hears His voice. We're convinced of it, regardless of what the world says. We know God, and we know that God speaks. Sometimes we have to wait to hear it. Sometimes we have to fight through to hear it, but we know that God is speaking. Yeah.
Well, happy Christmas party last night. That was fun. Good time. Yeah. Thank you. Love seeing the visitors there. Yeah, fun seeing the visitors. All the kids were just the light last night. Just wonderful. Well, we're on Psalm. We're going through the book of Psalms chronologically, according to when they were written, according to where they are in the Bible. And there's a lot of things in the Bible that are not in chronological order. It's very confusing person. You don't know theology, something that has no, it's like a door off its hinge. It doesn't have, it's still a door, it just, it doesn't see how it works. And it wasn't until I began reading the book through times, I read it through, and I started reading it through chronologically, and I began to understand the Bible. Oh, wow, maybe it started about 15, 20 years ago, something like that. How long ago? But I have marked up and worn out chronological Bible since then. And beginning to understand the Word of God to the historical, geographical, biographical information that is available to us in isolated bursts of, writing, which have some meaning, but not deep meaning. So Psalms chapter 3 and chapter 63 tonight. Chapter 3 would put it in the grouping of personal experience. There's 5 books to the book of Psalms. It's divided up in 5 different categories. Nobody knows why, because it happened before we have any understanding. The oldest manuscripts already divided up into 5 different books. People guess about it, but at the end of each of these 5 books, there's a doxology. So when you run into a doxology book, and then some people think it's got to do with what name for God is being used predominantly in that section of Psalms. And in the first book of Psalms, which is Psalms 1 through 42, the preferred word for God is Jehovah, or the personal, intimate God. And so it's called the Book of Personal Experience. In the second group of books in the Bible, which is where Psalm 63 is, in the book of Psalms, is called the Elohim section, where the word used for God is not so personal. It's big. And so these are 2 different areas of the book of Psalms. Not of any great importance, but it's good to keep that. Might show you something out of that someday. Who knows? You can follow the events that are being, we're going to be studying here in Psalm 3 and Psalm 63 by reading by Samuel 15 through 18. That context for these 2 Psalms. 2 Samuel 15 through 18. King David, if you remember, was confronted by the prophet Nathan, and he was confronted for committing adultery with Bathsheba and murdering Bathsheba's husband Uriah to cover up for the fact that she was pregnant. Here's a married woman who's pregnant not by a husband off at war, fighting for the honor and integrity of the state of Israel, fighting for his king. And while he's off at war, right, and she ends up pregnant. And it's going to be very clear that she's not pregnant by her husband. And so David has Uriah killed. That way he can take full, Bathsheba. And so this pregnant girl is impregnated by God's strength. one of the few people in the Bible that God calls his friend. He's a people chosen and anointed of God. And he murders her husband. Well, she had all right with that. This is wicked people. It's wickedness. And David admitted his sin. Of course, that was when he was confronted. Until he was confronted with and the prophet who confronted him told him when he confronted him, and David admitted it, the prophet said, your sin is forgiven. God has forgiven you. But you have some consequences to face. You're going to face some consequences. Three things, namely, the consequences that he's going to face is one, that his son by Bathsheba, that she's pregnant with, this boy is going to die. And he's going to be publicly humiliated. David in his hypocrisy before everybody. He's not going to hide it. And God said that the sword would never leave David's household. That for as long as he lived, his household would be essentially like Minneapolis gang neighborhood. One person would be shooting, another person come by and shooting another person. There'd be nothing in his life. And those are the consequences that David would walk under his sin. I always think that, if I confess my sin, then God's going to hide it. And we're not going to tell anybody. No, there's a day when all sins, all my sins, all of our sins, every word, every hour that comes out of our mouth is from the roof. There's no hiding it. Now you can confess it and you can renounce it and you can change and you can become a person. And if you really do become a better person, if you really are born again, then this can be a great gift. But you're always going to be a creep. I mean, except God says you're not a creep. But by normal human estimation, you would be a creep forever. You don't all of a sudden become a princess. Loyalty. I can play sense. I'm not on the way the world at you will be ugly. Now, when I tell people God has utterly and totally changed me. But and so here's David, and his son dies, and David begins a fast. He's trying to twist God's arm, get God to change his mind and relent and let his boy live. So he's fasting and crying and moaning, and everybody's going, "Oh, look, David is." And then when his son dies, he gets up and washes his face and goes back to work. You go, "What the? Dave, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I thought maybe I might change my mind." He didn't. Sin, church. They're real casual. We don't understand. We repent all the consequences. We think somehow the consequences they can get there. You did the time, crime, you did the time. Maybe God will But there's no reason for him to. He did give David some grace. He forgot. He gave him some grace. He says, okay, here's your. Now maybe you'll me. Now maybe you'll operate as like a king that I can do great things for. But in this situation, God did not relent. The baby died. David washed his face, resumed work. Later, another one by Bathsheba. All more children. This guy's name was Solomon. And Solomon, which is perplexing, you're going to take the whore Bathsheba and give David a son by that, and that's going to be, well, yeah, it's about the heart, not about the pedigree, not the line you come from, not who your grandfather was. It's about your individual heart. Over time, David had, well, he probably had more than 14 sons, just his main sons were 14, and he had a lot of wives. So God told Solomon, do not increase your horses, do not increase your wives. That's wrong. He warned Solomon not to do that. It's exactly what is in church. And that's exactly the wisest man on the earth was just destroyed by his own lust for power and lust for women. So we don't know for sure how yet, but named Tamar. And she was very beautiful. She was the sister of Absalom. Her half-brother name was Ammon. That's David's oldest son. Ammon. Time, David is out finishing up his enemies. He hasn't destroyed the Ammonites yet. And so Ammon, if you remember, Ammon is one of the sons of Lot. Remember Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah? God destroyed them. Lot ran away with his two daughters. And they hid in the cave. And his two daughters got drunk and had sex with him. They got pregnant. Ammon's one of those kids. And so they lived across the Jordan and then of what we would consider Israel across the Jordan River. David took the crown off this king of Ammon's head, and it weighed 7 gold and jewels. You got to have a strong neck to hold 75 crown on your head. David took it off his head and put it on his own head. Conquered this guy. This was going on while Ammon, not the Amorites, but Ammon, his oldest son, fell in love with Tamar and raped her. He got lovesick, crazy. Finally, he conquered her, raped her, and then he hated her instantly. His whole, everything changed. I've seen situations like that in my life, other people's lives. Have you? Let's see here. People crazy with lust can't stand the person. So, Absalom, this is his sister, Tamar. He revenges his sister and kills his oldest brother. The sword will never leave your household. That's while David's out of war. And while he's out there at war, Absalom is home killing his oldest son, and generals and his army and all of his advisors, and doing a complete coup of the kingdom and overthrowing David. When David comes back from war, there they were. He's warned. Absalom has taken over everything. He gets everything together and he puts it up, takes off, puts it all on donkeys, and walks out with what he could. He had to leave his wives there in Jerusalem. I mean, he could barely get out of town before Absalom came with the armies to kill everybody. Absalom fights against him, and they end up having a battle in the forests of Ephraim. Ephraim's the northern part of Israel. And this forest was so thick, and if you read the story in the Bible, it's as if, you know what I'm doing is I'm talking you through 2 Samuel 15 through 8. This forest is so thick, it's as if the forest itself is fighting against Absalom. And Absalom is riding through this forest on his donkey. He's got an afro, a big afro hair. And his hair gets caught in the branches of a tree, snags so bad that he's hanging, his donkey goes on, and he's hanging by his hair from the tree. Now, I, for one, these are stories for the Bible. I mean, this is amazing stuff. This stuff really happened. I, for one, don't know why he didn't have a sword or a knife or something to cut his hair off, to cut his way out of there. But anyhow, the one general that remained loyal to David found him hanging by his hair and killed him. His name was Joab. All these generals were like cousins. They were all relatives of one another. And Joab kills Absalom, brings the body back to David, shows David the body, and David weeps. Absalom goes, "This guy was just killing your people." Yeah, Joab says, "This guy was just killing your people. What are you doing, weeping? What is wrong with you, David? I mean, first your baby dies, and your baby dies, you get up, wash your face, go back to work. Now your son dies, and Absalom dies, and I kill him, and we get a victory over your enemy, and you're crying over this guy. What is with you, David?" Any parent would cry over a lost son. Even this enemy. Anyhow, this is all really confusing to the troops and the people around David. And that's where this psalm, that's the context of this psalm. Okay? All right. The Psalm of David regarding the time that David fled from his son Absalom. Psalm 3, verse 1 and 2. "O Lord, I have enemies. So many are against me. So many are saying, God will never rescue him. Many are they who rise up." They're saying that's "Thou, O Lord, art a shield for me." That's the next verse. But, "O Lord, I have so many enemies. So many are against me. So many are saying, God will never rescue him." So people are saying, God's not. I mean, listen. David's talking about in this psalm about his confidence that God's going to protect him. Now, God has said the sword will never leave his house. His sons are dying. David has said God's going to protect him. He's God's chosen king. God has called me, chose me. I wasn't looking for the job. He called me. And he said, I'm the king. And so he's going to protect me. That's David's reasoning. Being chosen in your life is very, very important. If you don't think of yourself as a chosen person of God, I'm not salvation. How did you get saved? Did you decide, well, I'm going to be a good guy? Really? Can you be a good guy? Because David couldn't. I can't. You better have a personal relationship with the living God. You got to know that God has called you, that He has spoken to your heart. He's real. You know He's real.
Right.
And if He has called you, then there is a destiny for you. There is something He has called you to. He just didn't call you because you were good looking and you wanted a couple of bookends on His bookshelf. He called you because He has a purpose for you, a destiny, and nothing can touch you or stop you from that. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. I've been saying that for years. So, by the way, he's a Christian. Hammer's a Christian. I got friends that know him well, and they hang out together.
Right.
Now, you might not think that it's so remarkable. All this stuff is, okay, why is he making a big deal on it? Well, David's a self-confessed, convicted adulterer and murderer. That's why it's remarkable. He's a fraud. He's a fake. He's a hypocrite. He's exposed himself. He was passing himself a worshiper in David's tabernacle. Think about it. A lot of people come to church here and they worship Jesus. They go out and get the freak on. Hello. He was a fraud. And so naturally, natural man would think that God would be unwilling to help David. Natural man would naturally think that God would hang David out to dry. Natural thinking, human thinking would be David under the bus. You know what I'm saying? There is no help for him in God. You say, there is no help for him in God. God will never rescue him. So, many of they who say, there is no help for him in God. But you, O Lord, are the shield for me. You are my glory. You're the one who holds or lifts up my head high. I cried out to the Lord, and He answered me from His holy hill. His holy mountain. Not another Selah. But under attack from his son and his best military men, David needed a shield. He knew that God was the shield. He just assumed that God would protect him out here just like He protected him from Saul. Isn't that amazing? This wasn't a prayer asking God to please be my shield. This was a declaration. You are shield. You know? Although man had abandoned David, he never for a moment thought. Once you know God well as a son or daughter of the living God, one thing that you will know is that your friends might abandon you, your mom and dad might betray you, but God will not. He's chosen. He knew he was chosen, and if he's chosen, the expression here, lift my head, New Living Translation is the one who holds my head high. Actually, lifting up of the head is kind of it's a means to restore the lifting up someone. I'm not just hold my head head high with pride. It shows David's confidence in the Lord. Lord, you are lifting my head up. My head is hung low. I'm down. Would you lift my head up? God's holy mountain, as you know, is in heaven. Maybe you don't know it. It's coming down when Jesus returns. But that's another sermon. It's kind of exciting. It will be the chief of all the mountains. All of the nations will come to it. But, so it's not that little nasty hill in Jerusalem. So David cried out for protection. And he called out and he said, God will answer me from his holy mountain. He forsook all of his former glory. And he says, I'll take the real glory of God. None of my glory, your glory, Lord. Fame, power, prestige, possessions, they all pale in comparison to the tangible glory of God. If you're going to choose God's glory. David cried out to God out loud, in a loud voice, in front of everybody, early in the morning, first thing in the morning. Here's King David out there with his ragged troops, hiding. What's he doing? He's standing up and going, Thou, O Lord, art a shield for me. Everybody going, shut up. There's times when you just cannot pray silently and be effective. Hello. Or pray out loud, really. I'm a breakthrough. I lay down and slept. And yet I woke up safety, for the Lord was watching over me. I am not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surround me on every side. When the morning came, David, the care of the Lord, he wakes up, he shouts out, Thou, O Lord, our shield for me. The morning comes and David wakes up, and that is his evidence. He wakes up and that's his evidence that God is with him. I'm alive. It's another day. God is with me. He didn't need to, circle the camp with tanks. I'm alive. And when he went to bed, he laid his head down and slept. He slept soundly, even all of this pressure. He put his trust in the Lord and simply went to sleep. When he wakes up in the morning, he's still alive. God's with me. Nobody betrayed me during the night. Nobody discovered me and snuck up on me while I was sleeping. Sleep was not only possible for David, sleep was deep and sweet sleep. David woke. David was literally surrounded by tens of thousands of enemies who swung their loyalty to Absalom, his son. Absalom, had won their hearts while David was away, while David was going old, while David was busy messing with Bathsheba and stuff. Absalom won their hearts. He would go and give them stuff. He would act like he cared about them. He seduced them. He cared for their crops. He undercut David in his old age. David's busy, preoccupied. He doesn't really care about you, but I care about you. He was nicer than David. It's all these people that are nicer than Jesus nowadays. Less legalistic than David, probably. David had hope a lot. He wrote off their debt. He was generous. He usurped David. He usurped David in his leadership in every way he could. under the radar while David was preoccupied with sin. Yet David was unafraid. He didn't ask to be king. He was unafraid because God had forgiven him and God had made him king. There you go. Arise, O Lord, rescue me. Save me, my God. Slap all my enemies in the face. Well, slap your grandma. Shatter the teeth of the wicked.
Slap your grandma.
Victory comes from you, O Lord. May you bless your people. So basically, what David is just saying right here is, arise, O Lord. You rise up. God, rise up, rescue me. I mean, save me is what that really is. Rescue is not just rescue me from this situation, but save me. Slap my enemies in the face. I mean, insult them, reproach them, put them down, slap them, shatter the teeth so they can't even chew their oatmeal anymore. Victory comes from you, O Lord. May you bless your people. Victory comes from where? God. For your life. All right, another Selah. We're going to go to another song, yeah.
I thought you were already pointing this out, but I thought I'd make a further connection. Maybe just decided not to mention it, but the council that counselors that stayed back with Absalom, right? Ahithophel and another guy were different, right? Ahithophel betrayed David. He told Absalom, "Go and get David tonight. Take 12,000 men, strike him when he's weak, get him tonight." And then David's friend, who came to basically give different counsel, he said, wait till you can gather all Israel and go and get them the next day, And then he sent word to David, hey, this is what Ahithophel told, you better cross the Jordan, you better keep going. So David gets everybody up, they cross the Jordan. They go to some place and they go to sleep. But if the Ahithophel had been followed, probably those 12,000 troops would have intercepted them in the night, even though they had crossed Jordan. So David wakes up and it's like, wow, I'm still here. Just a little background on what you're already saying.
Yeah. It's very intricate. But David, just like under Saul, he had spies. He has spies in Absalom's camp, and they're coming and telling him everything. As a matter of fact, the evil guy, about whatever his name was, the evil guy, advice is followed. He told David to sleep with all of David's wives, publicly and openly. That advice is followed. But the advice of chasing David with 12,000 men immediately right now was not followed. So, and that became the reproach. Everybody thought that's what Absalom's spin, Absalom's public relations, It's so like doing that for Absalom. That's ugly. You're ugly, So, yeah. So the psalm shows us that when God's elect call him for deliverance, that you can count on the chosen ones of God can count on God for salvation. You can count on it. I can tell you over and over again in the building of this church on this campus, it's total warfare to build this church. Because this is, I'll tell you, just that thing on the wall where Jesus Christ is Lord University. So I did that at University of Memphis, Tennessee. We put a banner, the Student Center at Memphis State University. And they took it down just like they did here when we put it on Golf Union here. The next day they had it down, and they had a big uproar. It made all the newspapers in the Midwest down there around Tennessee area, Bible Belt. Got pretty upset about that, you know. And they called me before the committee of religious leaders connected with the university. Would you come and talk to us? I went and talked to them, and this is what they had to say. Well, why do you say Jesus Christ is Lord? That's the Jewish guys. But when you can say Jesus is Lord, but you don't, why do you have to say Jesus the Messiah is Lord? He's not our Messiah. And then other people said, why do you have to say he's Lord? Because he's not Lord unless somebody makes him Lord. You have to make him your Lord. I said, well, he's Lord, whether you make him Lord or not, he is Lord. You know? And when we went back and forth like that, they pick at every little thing. The university didn't want me to use the University of Memphis. They didn't want me to use that. You know, the name of the university. So why not? It's public university's paper. I can use that now.
Yep.
Well, it's copywritten. Well, it might be copywritten, but you know what? You want to tell me not to use that name? I think that's pretty, you know.
Yep.
And it's always like that. If you're going to come into the university committee and bring the truth, light, the war is against the light. The war is to destroy the word. The war is to destroy faith. The war is to destroy truth. They just take little bites out of pieces out of the side of it until finally you're compromised just like every other person. And all that church really is just a social club where you come and have potluck dinners. Seriously. And you're going to stand on the campus and you're going to say abortion is murder. If you're going to stand on the campus and say, you know, God is the creator God. You're going to talk like that, you're going to be hacked at. And the war, it has been intense over the years. Not so much now, but it was intense back then. And let me tell you,
Just wait to track this out on the back of the
yeah,
Isn't that what you said last semester?
God called us here. This is built. And he is the one who's protected us all the way down the line. I don't have time to tell all the stories, but they're incredible stories over and over and over again. The time that Jonathan was on campus at the table and two lesbians came by and asked him, how do we know whether the world male or female? John says, what? What? I had just started not going on the campus. I was going out with campus for about over a year and was training him. And this is the first he was there by himself, I think. And sure enough, the lesbians come by and say, you know, how do you know whether or not you're male or female? And Jonathan said, well, next time I take a shower, look in the mirror. And,
love that conversation.
and he got called before the legal authorities. I mean, he was formally charged with sexual discrimination or hate crime.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
Wait,
no, I mean, it fell. We have the right to our opinion.
but then you told John to talk a little different next time.
Why is this a certain most of them?
It's been like, hold on, let me check. I'll be right back. I gotta go back.
All right, Psalm 63, the Psalm of David, regarding when it was in the wilderness of Judah. Now, how they know that this was the time that David was hiding out from Absalom is because he calls himself a king. When he was hiding from Saul, he wasn't king. This is from the time he was hiding from Absalom. O God, you are my God. I earnestly search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there is no water. I must know 15 songs with those verses. I mean, as David left Jerusalem after he was tipped off by the rebellion of Absalom, he walked along the road out in the wilderness, which is just an amazing series of verses in the Bible, leaving and walking out in the wilderness. He didn't come back to Jerusalem, he came back to Hebron. He ruled from Hebron, and then finally came back to Jerusalem. And, I don't know if you guys knew that or not. And 7 or 8, something like that. And he was weeping, and he covered his head as he was walking along. He was barefoot, throwing rocks at him, screaming at him. I mean, it must have been a really horrible time. He felt betrayed both as a father and as a king. He felt terrible. And while David was out hiding in the wilderness of Judah, he was away from his tent of worship. He wasn't there at the tent of worship. And went away from his normal routine of going into the tent and worshiping God in front of the Ark of the Covenant. I'm thinking it's, from time to time, God's presence is there in worship. You know, it's very intimate worship for David. And this left David out there alone in the wilderness, searching for God in nature, like we've often found ourselves. And instead of bowing to that, I think David does a lot of imagery in the Psalms of the wings, you know, like a hen gathers the chick under the wings, and you know, David will hide. And I think that's because of him worshiping before the Ark of the Covenant, which has the mercy seat, which is covered by 2 angels with their wings outstretched. And so David was aware of his physical thirst out there. He's in the desert, but his spiritual thirst was just as bad. He longed for the courts of God, for the place of God, for that place. The presence of God in David's life was like a necessity of you and I. He longed to worship God in the tabernacle. David knew of his thirst and his need for God first thing in the morning. When he woke up, he was thirsty in the desert. He woke up in the morning, he was thirsty for God. He longed to be with God. He longed to be in heaven. He longed to be away from all this. That's just normal. He wanted to be with God in some place. But instead, what he did is he thirsted, both spiritually and physically. You are my God. I earnestly search for you first thing in the morning. My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there is no water. Not just physical thirst, spiritual thirst. Now look at this. I have seen you in your sanctuary and gazed upon your power and glory. I think that's because in David's tabernacle, before the Ark of the Covenant, I think from time to time David experienced the Shekinah glory of God. Your unfailing love is better than life itself. How I praise you. I will praise you as long as I live. Lift hands to you in prayer. Lord, I will praise you with songs of joy. I lie awake thinking of you, meditating on you throughout the night. Spurgeon described David's hymn here in 63. He said the first 8 verses expresses his longing after God and his confidence in God. The first 8 verses. And then the verses are almost prophecy of the overthrowing of his enemies. He's prophesying. The first 8 verses, there are 16 statements of love and faith. revealing David's confidence in personal God. The sanctuary he's speaking of here is David's tabernacle that set up on Mount Zion. I don't think even yet that if you look, I don't think you guys understand that the worship, the methods of worship changed from the tabernacle of Moses in the wilderness to David took into Jerusalem, set up a tent, worshiping God 24/7, 365. That's where all this 24/7, 365 worship goes on around the country right now. That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to replicate what David did in his tent, David's tabernacle. And David's thirst for God found relief as he praised him. As he praised God and worshiped him, he found this relief. He felt satisfied. He considered the Lord's loyal love even more satisfying than water, than his normal human thirst. God's love for him nourished him in ways that David's trying to describe here, but it's almost impossible to describe. If you have not intimately, to not have God is to be dry and empty. It's to be dried up. There's a completeness, there's a fullness, there's a satisfaction that comes when a person has spent quality time in deep prayer and worship. The original language here speaks of the marrow, of the bone, and of fatness. In the original languages, this New Living Translation, satisfy me more than the richest feasts. Kind of loses some of that. And I like marrow and fatness. And those are, I can understand those words. You don't have to dumb that down for me. I get them. Because you are my helper, I see shadow of your wings. I cling to you. I think in most of your Bible follows hard after thee. Early in the morning I rise up to meet you. Your strong right hand holds me securely. But those plotting to destroy me will go down into the depths of the earth, and they will die by the sword and become the food of jackals. That expression, my soul follows hard after thee, could literally be translated nowadays as I am super glued to you. Literally. Literally. Really. God's support and provision of safety were the causes of God's mission and praise. God's support and his safety is the reason why David needed to meditate and praise, because fear would creep in, doubt would creep in. He needed to stay in the presence of God. David again pictured himself as a bird underneath his mother's wings. And he reflected on his confidence he had in his king. The Lord would preserve him in this situation that it was in. God knew David would deliver him because God had elected him and had blessed him for his submission to the Lord's will. But you see, he is speaking words of faith because he says, but those plotting to destroy me, they will be destroyed. They will go down into the depths of the earth. And I think most of your Bibles are going to say foxes, but it's probably jackals. Foxes don't eat dead meat. And
says foxes.
Yeah. So it's jackals. It's probably what it's foxes and jackals are the same Hebrew. So. But the king will rejoice in God. All who trust in the king will praise him, while liars will be silenced. Now, this is a very, let me back up and get back here. Because you are my helper, I seek to join the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your strong right hand holds me securely. But those who are plotting to destroy me, they're already in ruin. In David's mind, he would have to pray for them for God not to destroy them. Seriously. They'll go down to the depths of the earth. In other words, they're going to a place that the Hebrews would call Sheol, down into death, and will die by the sword, and dogs are going to eat them. David is just saying, this is what's going to happen to these folks. And pretty strong, hard statements for somebody who's a small little group hiding in the desert from tens of thousands of people. But the king will rejoice in God. You know, I put a capital king, I put that in parentheses because I think this is a prophetic statement. The king will rejoice in God. That's Jesus will rejoice in God. All who trust in him, because it's not David saying the king will rejoice in God. All who trust in the king will praise him, will praise God, while liars will be silent. So it's David saying, prophetically, he's speaking of Jesus. He doesn't even know he's saying it. He's just writing these words. And he's saying, Jesus will rejoice in God. All who trust in Jesus will praise God, while liars will be silenced. Plain and simple. So, picture Absalom getting his hair caught in the tree, somebody coming right behind him with the spear. Here's another picture of that same scene. And here's David mourning when Absalom died. Everybody's going, what are you doing? Problem is that David was out in the wilderness when Absalom died. He wasn't in some big palace somewhere, you know. But Dory was not a historian. He was just an artist.
Well, they did come back into the city, though, right? And then Joab was like, you need to go sit in the gate, and I swear by tomorrow, we won't serve you anymore, or something like that, right? So didn't they come back in the city?
Right, not Joab. I mean, Absalom. Absalom died, and they were out in the wilderness when Absalom died. They weren't in the city at that time. Actually, you can go over to Absalom's grave. It's there on the Mount of Olives. That's Absalom's grave.
Big old pyramid thing.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Who made
Nobody knows. And they don't know for sure it's Absalom.
Oh.
It just says there's a card in it that says it's Absalom, but that doesn't mean that it really is Absalom.
That'll sell some tourist tickets.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for your word. We ask that you to seal the Psalm 3 and Psalm 63 in our heart. We bring forth a great fruit in our lives with these realizations of David's trust in you and his knowledge of your hand upon his life. Seal it in Jesus' name, and all that's been said. Let's pray and ask, Lord, what we do in regular tithes and offerings. Father, speak to our hearts what we do in regular tithes and offerings. We'll do that now in Jesus' name. Whatever the Holy Spirit tells you. Announcements here tonight. I think we're just about done.